Hey there, Lucas back at it, and today I'm very excited to talk about a new gimbal. So this is a brand new gimbal. It's the ViiGim 307 encoders. Maybe you remember the last ViiGim gimbal I reviewed. I think it's 1 or 2 years in the past. And this is not like the successor of this gimbal. This is more like its little brother. So the biggest differences are that this gimbal is more oriented towards the amateur crowd. So that's not that much for enthusiasts and not that much for professionals. You can also see this from the kind of features you get. So for example, where the old ViiGim had battery support for your camera, where you could hook up your camera directly to your gimbal to power everything at once. Also, you don't have a nice sled to set up your camera, it's only the screw in the space, and it's the little things that where it differs. We get to this in a moment. Yet I don't think it's the worst product. Actually, I think this is the better product, mainly because of a few things, which is that it has encoders, as it's already in the name. That means that all three axis motors have encoders. This is mainly cool for two things. The first thing is it uses less power, so it is more efficient to run longer. And the second, maybe even better thing, is that it can handle a lot more weight. So I don't know exactly the numbers, I don't have them in my head right now, what you can put on this gimbal, but it's I think 1.5 or even 2 kilograms, something like that. So basically you can load a much heavier setup onto this gimbal. There are a few restrictions we will talk about in a second. So to round up in the beginning directly, this is a super cheap gimbal, so it's $350, I think even $348 or something like that. It's really cheap. You can load more than 1 kilogram of camera onto it, which is pretty neat. And it also stabilizes your footage really well. So the first thing you already noticed is that it looks a bit silly. So it's very big on the top and you have this small little grip. This looks weird, I'm with you on that, but the thing is, this is really one of the best features of this thing, because basically you have 3 mounting threads underneath the gimbal. So you have a 1/4 inch in the middle, then also another 1/4 inch next to it, and a 3/8 inch directly under it. So basically you can mount it on several different ways. So you're not only hooked up with your little handle that chips with this gimbal. You can hook it up to a crane, to a jib, to your tripod, to a slider, to I don't know, your bike, a cycle, whatever. You have really many options to mount this thing, because all the hardware stuff is within this package here, and this is quite cool. And this handle is only one way to use it. I'm sorry for the screw here, it's tingling the whole time. So this comes with the gimbal. So basically we have this little tripod thing here. We can hold it like this with 2 hands. It's pretty good. But also we can sit it down. So the last gimbal from ViiGim, we had this little base, this plastic base, where we could stand our gimbal on. And it's much more convenient, of course, to have it like inside your stand. This also means we can use different mounting options. For example, I have this little table tripod here. I will screw it just in. This is a separate purchase, but still pretty cool. And this is like, you can fold it out, and then you have this base, and you can just put it on your table, and you can use it like this. This is also pretty cool. You have different options for mounting it. And very cool with this handle here is that you have like a little tripod integrated and a grip also. So it's also very small. This is pretty practical. And then we have also this. You know, this was actually introduced to me as the big black stick. So the big black stick also gets into the 1/4 inch thread underneath the gimbal. And with that, we have a much better grip on it. Of course, now this gimbal looks really big. Basically, this handle is not heavy at all. So it's, I think this is hollow inside. It's only a bit of aluminum, it's really light. We also have threads underneath, 2 1/4 and 1 3/8 inch. So before we get into the gimbal action, let's talk about the controls that we have on this gimbal. We have one button to actually get it on. We will do this in a second. Then we have an option button. This option button is used to switch modes. As always, this gimbal has several modes predefined shipping with you. You can also readjust them in the software. We will take a look at it later. We have a little joystick. And then what you might have seen already, we have these little rubber caps here. These are for extension modules, which is pretty cool. So you can basically remove them. They are hooked up with magnets. And underneath we have a little PCB and some sort of terminal. This is for an RC receiver. So basically, this is not yet available though. This is still in development, I was told. However, this is made for an RC receiver, so we can hook up an RC remote to wirelessly control the gimbal, which is pretty cool for a jib setup, a crane setup, for example. This other rubber door here is for a Bluetooth terminal, with which you can set up your gimbal with the mobile software. So these modules can be imagined actually like this joystick, because this is a module already. So we can detach it also with magnets. You can see the PCB here and pops on again, and it will be like this, and this is pretty convenient. We have a little USB input, micro USB to set up the gimbal with our VG software. Last but not least, we have a little hole here. This is for the AC plug, so to charge the batteries. This is, I have no idea from which country this is. I think this is, I guess, is it Chinese? I have no idea. This takes anything from 100 to 240 volts, so I just use an adapter, which works quite well. So, shall we get into the gimbal game now? So, I did not adjust this on purpose, so I can show you how this works. Basically, we have to do some sort of basic adjustment, so some sort of basic balancing with our camera inside the sled. So the first thing is to prepare the camera like we want to use it. So in my case, I want to drop the front cap, and I also want to get out my display to see what I'm filming. So in this case, you can see it's front heavy and it gets a lot to the side. So I will lose this screw here and adjust it just a bit till I find actually that this axis here, the one in the back, is the hardest to balance, but this works quite well, so we already balanced this one. And then we have to get the camera a bit more into the back, maybe it was a bit too much. Yeah, we're already done. One axis people tend to forget is this one here, so this looks already pretty good. And of course we don't want to forget this axis here. So this is not yet set up properly. So now it is kind of balanced. So this will be good enough for this video. One thing that I talked about earlier is that we have some restrictions with this gimbal. And one thing that I noticed is, even though this can handle a lot of weight, we have some issues with bigger lenses. So if you have a lens which is very heavy and maybe a bit longer, you have the problem that you cannot get the camera too far into the back to balance this gimbal properly. So this is some restriction that we have. We cannot get the camera far enough to the back to actually be able to balance every camera setup. Let's switch it on. So we can see this button here, the on-off switch. This will blink in different colors depending on the battery status. The battery on this thing is integrated, so we cannot change it on the fly. However, I have to tell you, I have this thing for quite some time now, and I charged this once when it arrived, because I have no idea how empty it was when it got here, because it came all the way from China. And you can still see it blinks like a bit. This means it's not full anymore, but it's still not yellow, still not red, so the battery is quite full. I cannot tell you the battery life, but it's quite long. So what we can already see, like here, this thing stabilizes. So this is the mode that we have here. So this is the, I have no idea how it's actually called. This is the mode where it will follow all our movements, but will follow when I switch directions. So one push of a button will get into this mode. This is the first mode, so it does not change. When I press 2 times, I think you heard it, then we switch the modes. You can see now, I think this is called the follow mode. So it will follow all movements I make, but smooth. So this is the idea behind this mode. Pretty neat. Also, when I get like down, it will move down. And 3 times I have the lock mode, so regardless with axis I push, it will look into the same direction. This is pretty cool for selfie videos actually. Works quite well. And then usually these are the 3 basic modes. Then we have a 4th and 5th action, so we can push it 4 times. This will get the gimbal into the home position. So basically it will readjust where it was. You can see this, for example, when I use a joystick. It will home back again. The 5th obturation can be accessed when we press and hold the button, and this will recalibrate it. So you can hear this. So it recalibrates the camera and recalibrates the sensors. So we are leveled again. This is pretty neat. Of course, for this you should need a leveled base. So usually with gimbals I hate these demonstrations where they like totally freak out with it, because this is no way a gimbal should usually be used, because of course some things cannot be stabilized. I think there are these crazy rigs for car chasings and stuff like that, but of course in normal situations you won't have this. But with this gimbal actually you can do all this crazy stuff and it still stabilizes. Of course it's not the lock mode, so when I switch it like this it will move a bit left, right, and so on and so forth. But still, it's really a stable experience even when I freak totally out with it. You know? Pretty cool. Something that we could do before that we can also do again is simply switch into the upside down mode. So I just switch it upside down and then we are in upside down mode. So it will stick into this. This actually is pretty neat, because I found actually when I use this, I'm not like a small person, but I'm also not like a giant. But still, I found when I had it on my chest level, this camera was still way too high to follow people who are a tad shorter than me. So basically I would always crop up too much from the legs and had too much headroom. So with the upside down mode and holding it like more on my belly level, this works much better for following people, at least from my height. So here we have it with the big black stick. This is a separate purchase, as I mentioned before. I think it's $20. I think it's worth it because it holds the gimbal much better. So because all the hardware is in this part, it's a bit top heavy naturally. So with the big black stick, we are able to move it much better. Also, it's much nicer to have it with 2 hands. It's always much easier with a big handle to give it to someone else. And because this is detachable and you can just screw it on and off, it's also very portable. So you can just like drop it into your backpack underneath other things. And I think this works pretty well. Let's talk a bit about the joystick. So right now it's not very fast. You can see this, it's kind of slow. But I set it up like this because I like the rather slow movement, you know? And also when you see it here, when I pull it just a bit, it will not immediately stop, it will drag a bit. And I like this much more than this unnatural, very robotic stopping that you have usually. Of course, this is not perfect, you know? It's like also a bit robotic, but it's not that like super robotic. It's acceptable robotic, if you know what I mean. Well, in the software we can configure this all, and we can also configure how far we want to be able to shift this. So basically now I can turn 180 degrees here. I can look straight into the sky or to the ground. I cannot go any further, as you can see here, so it goes not further. I can adjust this. We can adjust this inside the software. And also we can adjust that we cannot go this far, because this is a perspective that would bring not much use for anyone. So basically it will always film the gimbal with it. So maybe I should set up it like this, so I won't film the gimbal when I have it like this, and I don't accidentally tilt too far down to have the gimbal in my picture, which will ruin it. So basically we can set up some sort of safety ranges for our joystick, which is also pretty cool. When I initially recorded this review, I forgot about one feature that I really appreciate now, that I quickly wanted to show you. So maybe you get something like this, you know, it's like tangled up all along, and one issue of course with the gimbal is you cannot like push it in position again because it will get back where it came from. But when we press and hold our gimbal into this position for a few seconds, I can't tell you how many, it sets this as its new default. So basically this helps us greatly with framing, or when we only quickly want adjust the level again without some crazy joystick action, we have it set up again and it will stabilize it from this default. Okay, I promise this is the last thing I add after recording this review. But this is really a cool feature and I want to show it to you. So we learned our cool grip. We just adjust the camera how we like. I will do it like this. So, and what we can do now with the camera is we can set a time lapse within the camera. We have to utilize the software to set the length. For example, I set this to 20 seconds just to show it to you. So for now, I will trigger the setup for the time lapse. This is my ending position. So this is where the camera will end. And now we set the start position. So I press the button 4 times because I set it to 4 times. Now you hear the beeping. Now I can set it up for like 10 seconds and I will maybe like this. And now we can see it will get into the position it was before within 20 seconds. Should have used 10 maybe, so it's a bit faster to show. And now it beeps, so this is the end position. So now it's not very convenient to always push it into the directions where we want it. So what we can do is repeat the last motion. So I will press it 5 times the button. We can set this in the software. And now it will repeat the motion I did before, the same way I did before. So basically we have a repeatable action that we can trigger here. You can see this is a bit wobbly because of the feet, because this is not like really stable for the time-lapse option. You should mount it to a tripod maybe for this stuff, or maybe also a time-lapse slider. So this adds a whole new dimension with things you can actually do with this setup. And this is pretty cool because you can repeat the same motion over and over again. It's like some sort of cheap motion control that you could utilize this for if you really wanted to. You could pull something up with this. How to set up this thing within the software, I won't show you this here because this will take a lot of time and it's already explained very well from the manufacturer, so we'll link in the description to a video where it is explained how to set up the time-lapse option. But I think this is really a really cool thing to have because it's free and it's inside the gimbal. It's pretty cool. I think this is it with this gimbal, and I have to be honest with you, I really like this gimbal because it's so affordable, you know, $350 for a gimbal that can hold a GH5 with a lens with no problems, most likely all day long, for all I know, battery life, and is even has a joystick and so on and so forth. I think this is a really good value, and I can put it on virtually any other gear I have, be it a jib, slider or whatever. And I think this is something I never really wanted before. You know, I didn't want to put my gimbal on a tripod, and I don't want to do this now. But I could really see this on a jib or in a little crane. You know, this is where a gimbal like this really shines because it's also kind of small. And I think this is really, really good value for the money. You know, and yeah, I think this is for now all there is to say. Thank you very, very much for watching. Hope you see you next time. I have a few things coming up, just very little time to do them, and it's Christmas soon, so I have this little tree in the back. Hope you like it, and I hope to see you next time, and bye.